Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a brutal attack on Ukraine immediately after his phone call with President Trump, who is attempting to broker peace negotiations between the warring nations, according to the New York Post. Whilst Donald Trump and European leaders were in Washington, D.C. making strides towards peace.
Yes, this is so important, and I'm happy that we discussed this track with President Trump, and I hope that we will find decisions. And then what is very important, that all the sensitive things, territorial, etc., we will discuss on the level of leaders during trilateral meeting, and President Trump will try to organize such meeting, and he said that he will come or not come. Ukraine will be happy if you will participate.
Want me there, I will be there.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is very important.
Putin launched 270 drones and 10 missiles into Ukraine territory, the largest strike in a month. This attack came after another deadly strike just days prior, as Trump met with Putin for peace talks. That attack killed 14 civilians and injured more than 50. Ukraine Foreign Affairs Minister Andriy Sybiha slammed the most recent senseless Russian attacks on X, saying, while hard work to advance peace was underway in Washington, D.C., led by President Zelensky and POTUS, with the participation of European and NATO leaders, Moscow continued to do the opposite of peace, more strikes and destruction. Overnight, Russia launched 270 drones as well as ballistic and cruise missiles into Ukraine. There has been damage to the energy infrastructure and injured civilians. This once again demonstrates how critical it is to end the killing, achieve lasting peace, and ensure robust security guarantees. In this sense, the future meeting of leaders of Ukraine, the US and Russia can bring a breakthrough on the path to peace. We are grateful to the United States and President Trump for the peacemaking. The attacks on Ukraine has come as a surprise, as the meeting between Trump and Putin indicated a peaceful resolution was imminent, according to Sky News host Rowan Dean.
I'm glad you mentioned the meeting there between Trump and Putin. I thought it was terrific. I thought we've had all the naysayers, and we'll talk about one of them a bit later, saying, oh, what a disaster. Putin walked all over Donald Trump, etc. I think we're going to see a deal being done. I think we're going to see it quite possibly in the next week or so. Caroline, the way Donald Trump does things, he's already had plenty of successes in finishing wars in Cambodia, we mentioned them earlier in the show, Congo, etc., etc. Do you think he's going to pull this one off?
I'm probably not as confident as you are, Rowan, just because Putin doesn't seem to be backing down from what he wants, which is territory in Ukraine. And he says that Russia will continue, after this meeting that is, Russia will continue until it gets its key goals. And it's also Trump's moved away from calls for a ceasefire there and for the violence to stop and to a peace agreement, which means Russia can continue fighting until they finally negotiate one. Now, it is very positive that Zelensky is going to come to the White House and he's going to be involved next week, but really there can't be an agreement until there's an agreement reached between Zelensky and Putin. And for him not to have been involved in those initial talks, I think were a problem. So I hope you're right. I really do. And I'm definitely not a Trump naysayer. I do think he could be the great peacemaker of our time. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that happen. Not in Russia. They thought he would fix it straight away. It hasn't happened. Let's be realistic. And not in the Middle East either. But a big part of that is countries like Australia undermining the efforts for negotiations.
I might mention Iran, which was up until some weeks ago was the major nuclear threat in the world, and that's now finished.
But despite Putin's actions not lining up with his words on wanting a resolution, Sky News contributor Megyn Kelly is optimistic and says the wheel is turning.
Our favourite time of the week is when we get to talk to Megyn Kelly, normally on a Wednesday, but special occasion means it is tonight on a Tuesday. She joins us now from the beautiful United States. Lovely to see you, mate. A bit going on in Washington today.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, when you get the band back together, you got to make sure all the OGs are there. So, yeah, we had nice representation from the European Union. And that led our press corps to say they're there to babysit Donald Trump, to stop him from doing anything like bullying Zelensky into some sort of a deal. But Zelensky can hold his own. We've seen that. He didn't need them. And Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, was all over the airwaves yesterday saying, would you please calm down? They're here because we invited them, which is, of course, the only way you do get into the Oval Office. Trump and the European leaders were very magnanimous together. They got along. It was like a family photo. And at one point, I believe he may have even called President Putin.
I think he wants to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? As crazy as it sounds.
But look, that's all we're looking for is some progress. It's going to take a lot of this, a lot of these meetings, a lot of these back and forths. There will be disappointments. Nothing was happening, nothing to bring this war to an end prior to President Trump taking office. So thankfully now, at least the wheel is turning. Probably not as quickly as anybody wants, but it's turning, Paul, which is progress.
But Sky News commentators weren't so hopeful, saying Putin will lie and cheat in negotiations.
Look, I think Crimea is off the table. I think Russia will keep Crimea. But the big variable here is what happens on the ground, because if you control areas on the ground, you tend to have a stronger bargaining position. And this is where I think Donald Trump has to be careful. He sort of backed away from the idea of a ceasefire first. Russia does not want a ceasefire because Russia wants to quickly change facts on the ground in its favour. And look, the momentum that Donald Trump has created is very positive. It's far better than anything that's happened in the last few years. But we do know Putin will lie and he'll cheat. And the only way you can manage that is to coerce him. So there are things that Putin will be afraid of. He'll be afraid of the Russian state assets, which are currently being frozen, being given to Ukraine to pay for military aid. He'll be afraid of the US actually giving the Ukrainians Tomahawk missiles, which Donald Trump actually sort of raised back in July. He'll be afraid of secondary sanctions against countries that buy Russian oil. If you can use that coercive element, then I would be a lot more optimistic that we can get to a deal.